The air hung thick and heavy over Floresville, Texas. It was a summer evening, the kind that made everyone's clothes stick to them like a second skin, and a bad case of swap ass. Cicadas chirped their monotonous song. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. It was the perfect night for a hunt. Weeks earlier, Sean and Steve had built the deer stand. It wasn't pretty, but it was sturdy. They used scrap wood and whatever else they could find.
Sean made sure it wouldn't fall apart in a strong wind.
Getting it onto Sean's truck was a feat of engineering. They finally managed to tie it down, looking like a rickety tower on wheels. They drove it to the hunting spot under the cover of darkness, not wanting to draw any unwanted attention, and to avoid traffic. The property belonged to a buddy of Ray's, another Marine. 5 acres of prime Texas wilderness. Well, not exactly wilderness. It was more like farmland with a bad attitude. To get there, they had to navigate a dirt road that had seen better days. Washed-out ruts and potholes the size of small cars made it an off-road adventure in itself. But for Sean, Ray, and Steve, it was their own private hunting paradise. Sean, the quiet one, was the designated driver and voice of reason. He loved to fish and would try just about anything. He carried a trusty 20-gauge.
Ray, or Gunny as everyone called him, could rig a solution to any problem with a piece of string and a paperclip.
Gunny was the group's resident MacGyver. His weapon of choice was a Mini 14, along with a pistol for good measure. Steve, the gadget guy, had enough equipment to outfit a small army. He was a walking advertisement for Soldier of Fortune magazine. Steve had enough equipment to outfit a small army, including but not limited to a high-powered rifle, a crossbow, night vision goggles, scent remover, a headlamp, and his prized possession, an iPhone. Oh, and he never went anywhere without his cigarettes, a can of Skoal, and a 6-pack of Tall Boys. The trio was always prepared for any adventure. They met Ray at the turnoff to the dirt road. It had rained recently and the road was a muddy mess.
Get in, leather nuts!
Sean yelled, grinning. Ray hopped in and they set off, the truck bouncing and sliding its way through the mud. Steve, never one to miss an opportunity, climbed onto the hood of the truck. He clung on with one hand, rifle in the other, like a deranged rodeo clown. Steve shouted to Sean to hold it steady because he saw a pig. Sean, used to Steve's antics, just shook his head and kept driving. Suddenly, Steve lost his grip and tumbled off the truck. The group burst into laughter as Steve picked himself up, covered in mud. He climbed back into the truck, grabbed another beer, and declared, "That freaking sucked." The ride to the deer stand was a testament to Steve's unique brand of chaos.
Steve regaled everyone with stories of past hunts, most of which were embellished for comedic effect.
And he sang off-key country songs. Steve attempted to light a cigarette, nearly setting his neck handkerchief on fire.
And he even managed to spill beer on himself, which, considering his state of inebriation, was no surprise.
They finally spotted the pig Steve had tried to shoot earlier. It was rooting around in a patch of weeds. Steve shouted, "This is it, boys!" he whispered, his voice thick with excitement and smelling of beer and wintergreen Skoal. Steve took aim and fired. This time, he connected. The pig squealed and ran off. They all piled out of the truck in pursuit, following its blood trail. They found it about 100 yards away, laying in thick brush. Steve, ever the trigger-happy hunter, put it out of its misery with a full mag of 9mm. They dragged the pig back to the road, planning to pick it up later on the way out. As they were walking back, Ray suddenly stopped.
Ray asked, "Did you hear that? Sounded like something moving in those bushes?"
He raised his rifle and fired a shot into the darkness. Nothing.
Sean commented, "That's pretty good for your level."
Steve, who had been strangely quiet during this exchange, burped loudly. Steve asked, "Hey, hand me another beer?" The group finally reached their hunting grounds, which they had dubbed the Killing Fields. It sounded a lot more impressive than it actually was. The deer stand sat precariously on the edge of a clearing. Steve, in his haste to climb up, missed the ladder rung and stumbled. He let out a yelp and landed in a heap at the bottom, his rifle clattering out of his hands.
"You all right, Steve?"
Sean whispered, trying not to laugh. "What do you think?" Steve hissed back, gathering his scattered dignity and his rifle. They settled into the stand. Sean and Ray sat quietly, scanning the area for movement. Steve, on the other hand, was a one-man symphony of rustling, belching, and slurping. He cracked open another beer, the can top hissing in the quiet night. He pulled out his phone and started scrolling, the screen illuminating his face in the darkness.
For crying out loud, Steve. You're gonna scare away every animal within a mile radius.
Relax, Gunny. Pigs can't see that good at night. Besides, it's not like they can smell my beer. Steve took a long swig, oblivious to his companion's glares. He suddenly sat up, eyes glued to his phone. Hold on. Damn! She got some big ones. A shot rang out. A raccoon, startled by the sudden noise, tumbled out of a nearby tree. I got him, Steve yelled, lowering his rifle. Sean and Ray just stared at him. 3 hours later, Gunny spotted a hog. He took aim and fired. The hog grunted, a sickening thud echoing in the night. It ran, trailing blood and squealing. Gunny, adrenaline pumping, waited 30 more minutes before he scrambled out of the stand and took off after it. They found him a few minutes later, covered in blood up to his elbows and gagging from the smell of the guts. He had gut shot the hog. Man, that smells nasty. But hey, at least you got him. The ride back was a blur. They were tired, covered in blood and mud, and slightly drunk. As they were driving down the dirt road, Sean spotted a rabbit hopping across the path. He grabbed his shotty and jumped onto the hood of the truck, just like Steve had earlier.
Hold it steady, Gunny.
Sean yelled, laughing. He took aim and fired. The rabbit disappeared in a puff of pink mist. Hell yeah! Steve yelled, as he crushes an empty tall boy. They all laughed as they drove off into the night, the sounds of their revelry fading into the Texas darkness. The pig they left on the side of the road had spoiled in the heat, so they left it for the coyotes and yard chickens. Suddenly, the truck was stuck in a rut. They had to call someone with a tractor to pull them out. Laughing and relieved, they finally dropped Gunny off and drive home. Thank you for joining us on this wild adventure. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hilarious misadventures.